How's it going, man?
Good, man. Just, doing whatever, hanging out.
All fresh shaved and shit, eh?
I know. I get younger by the
Oh, what happened? You're a big beard sorter, so I'm shocked to see this gone right now. You
yeah,
did it in quarantine when nobody could see.
yeah, I know. And then I ended up like being on the internet every day, and now everyone.
So yeah, you just been hanging out, just working out and stuff.
Yeah, man. Like still trying to train every day. Like obviously, like I guess I don't know, man. Like I hate saying that I'm lucky. I hate when people are like, "Oh, you're lucky you have a squat rack." It's like, no, I'm not lucky. But like, I bought this thing 7 years.
Yeah, it's not luck. You did it.
Yeah, I have it, and therefore, so it's like. But at the same time, it's so boring, man. Like just squatting and whatever. I'm like, oh, this is boring, dude. I want to use a machine or whatever. So it's like I get to train, but
Yeah.
motivation dwindles pretty quick.
For sure. Okay. All right, guys. I got Killian Hamilton with me today. I met Killian about what, like 4 or 5 months ago, 6 months ago.
Yeah, probably.
I taught. Well, Jordan. I met Killian through Jordan Shallow, the muscle doctor. I'm really pretty good friends with him, and he told me a lot about you. And when I met you from our hypertrophy course, really impressed with kind of like your knowledge and what you knew about training and everything. So I don't know, like let's introduce yourself, kind of talk about like what got you started, how you got into this.
Yeah. Cool, man. No, thanks a lot for the opportunity. Like, big fan of yours. Like hearing about you from obviously Shallow, and then like at the hypertrophy course, like your shit and you're jacked. So like, why wouldn't I be a fan, right? But
Thanks, man.
yeah, it's like my name's Killian Hamilton. I'm a personal trainer. Along with a coach and consultant now specifically for mainly strength and combat sports. I've been doing this almost a decade now. I kind of was like writing down some talking points, and I looked back and it was like, man, I started training with weights in 2011. Previous to that, I just played a lot of sports, and kind of my introduction to weightlifting is really interesting, or to working out, because I did it because I was unemployed. Before I got into all this, I went to university for a couple months, dropped out of university, became a carpenter. I was a carpenter for a year. I got laid off from being a carpenter, and I was just like up every day at 5 a.m. with nothing to do and all this energy. And I started going to the gym, just something to do, kind of get the energy out, still do something physical and progress myself. But I'm dumb. I wanted to be a bodybuilder so bad. And I was looking up all these bodybuilding workouts, and like an arm workout had 8 different bicep exercises. I didn't know what any of these were. It's 2011. There's no Instagram. YouTube sucks. Binder curl, like I didn't get it. So I found a powerlifting workout, and it was just squat, bench, and deadlift. And I was like, okay, I can kind of fix it.
I can get that. I can do that.
Simple. So I was like, I guess I do powerlifting now. And I didn't even want to, but I just couldn't figure out how to do a bodybuilding workout to save my life. That's why my arms are still like 10 inches around. But still haven't figured out how to do a bicep curl. But yeah, I got into powerlifting pretty heavily. For the last 9 years, I've been doing the majority of it's been powerlifting or strength focused. Yeah, so that was kind of the biggest thing, is powerlifting had the lowest barrier for entry. I didn't have to be super lean or eat really well. It didn't have like 25 exercises I had to do, and I didn't have to do fasted cardio. So powerlifting was just an easy, lazy man's option of working out. So that's kind of how I got into it.
Jeez. Huh. Okay, so that's how you got into it. But when you started, like, was this something that your friends were doing and like family? Like, did you grow up into it? And this is what you were like, okay, I kind of want to do bodybuilding, but like I don't have it. Like, how did that happen? Like, what was the starting point? What was that thing that got you started? Did you pick up a magazine? Like, I know you said it was bodybuilding, but what even started that? Did you pick up a magazine? Was it just kind of like you saw superheroes and you're like, shit, I want to be like that? I know for me, like, I watched a lot of WWF.
Yeah.
Right? So like I was like, oh fuck, Hulk Hogan, 24-inch arms. Shit, that's crazy. This guy looks sick. Right? Seeing Superman, seeing like my favorite superheroes, I was like, oh, they're all jacked. I want to do that. So
yeah. For me, man, like like my dad worked out like when he was younger, but he did like martial arts. He played a little bit of sports. He never really like got in like big into the gym. I wasn't even big into bodybuilding, but I was just like, small dude. Like I graduated high school 130 pounds, like naturally skinny. I got pretty broad shoulders. So I just kind of wanted to like be bigger. I was just tired of being like 130 pounds. You know what I mean? Like you're hanging, and like nobody I knew really got into bodybuilding, but I played a lot of sports where naturally people were bigger. Like in high school, I played rugby, I played football, and it's like, man, people who were successful at football, like they weigh 220 pounds.
Yeah. What do you weigh now?
I'm 185 in quarantine. Before quarantine, I was like 176.
So there's been a bit of fluff on there.
Oh yeah, dude. Like
I think everyone's getting that. That's happening to everyone. I'm fat right now. I'm literally fat. Like I'm out of shape. I went for a run this morning around the track, and I'm just doing like this 5K kind of training module. And holy crap, man. But my thought is like, if I can breathe better, right? And if I can get better at breathing, I'm also learning box breathing. I don't know if you've heard about that before.
Yeah.
So I'm getting into that. And my theory is if I can breathe better and I don't fatigue through my oxygen, right? Then I can actually fatigue my muscle better.
100%.
Yeah.
And it's just like a lesser stressor, right? Like I think breathing economy is huge, especially when it comes to bodybuilding hypertrophy, especially for bigger guys, like guys who are actually competitive. Like you get over like that 100 kg, 220 pound mark, and it's, man, like breathing economy now comes up.
Sure.
Like you
tie your shoes.
Yeah.
You tie your shoes and you're like, like I know, like when I'm bulking and I start getting really big, like everything's an effort. So I try to do minimal. Like my energy's saved for the gym. Yeah. And that's kind of where it's spent, right? Yeah. Okay, so none of your friends, family, your friends, family, none of your friends really worked out. Dad kind of worked out here and there.
Yeah. So none of my friends worked out, man. All my friends are like film nerds.
So you turned into the big guy real quick.
Yeah, I guess so. And even then, like I was 165 pounds until 3 years ago, and that was like me. That was my heaviest, dude. Like I'd walk around at 165 and I'd cut to 146 to compete at powerlifting.
Whoa.
So like I got big like a week ago.
That's crazy, man. That's crazy. Okay, let's fast forward a little bit, because we're talking about your training and your development. So just recently I saw a picture on your Instagram with you with Louis Simmons. Yeah. Did you take training with him, or like what happened there?
No, it's a pretty cool story, man. So I was about a year and a half into powerlifting, was really into it. Obviously as a small guy, and like I said, you know, my dad didn't really work out, none of my friends worked out. I just trained by myself at the gym. So my dad like looked up powerlifting on the internet, because I was like squatting all this weight and whatever, and he was like, all right, I gotta figure out what this is. Like this seems like not a good idea. So he looks it up. And he's like, okay, well, what are you reading? Like, how do you know how to do this? I was like, oh, I read like a lot of Louis Simmons stuff, Westside barbell. Like, there's these bald white dudes who lift all this weight.
Fucking nut jobs.
Yeah, exactly.
Craziest, nuttiest, strongest mother effers around. Yeah, okay. This makes sense. You're like 140. You're like, let me just lift with the craziest monsters out there. Yeah. All right, cool.
Measures. I'm gonna do what they do. So I was like, yeah, I just read Westside. So my dad looks it up. He finds out where it is. My dad calls Louis Simmons on the phone.
Whoa.
I think I'm like 19, 20 years old. So he calls up Louis on the phone and he's like, hey, my son's doing all this powerlifting stuff. I don't know what he's doing. But he reads your book. And like my family's from Windsor, Ontario. It's right across from Ohio. That's where Westside is. So my dad calls Louis. He's like, he's doing all this stuff. He's doing all this powerlifting stuff. We're going to go down to Windsor in the summer. Can we come by the gym? Like, I'm sure like my son for his birthday would love to come to Westside.
Oh, this is getting good.
Yeah. So Louis like, no, fuck you. Like, cool. Like, I just thought I'd ask, whatever. My dad's a super nice guy. So Louis like, no, you can't come to the gym. There's no photos. There's no visitors. He's like, but if your son wants to come and train at Westside, you can come. But he has to train for 3 days straight. Like, he has to come and train with everybody for 3 days. That's how
he's just a badass like that, huh?
Yeah. So
like, you can't visit, but you can come train.
Yeah. So then signs me up. He's like, yeah, he'll do it. Dude, what the fuck's going on here? So my dad just tells me, he's like, yeah, you and me are going to Westside. You're going to train there.
And you hear this, and are you not like, well, fuck, I'm not ready for this? Or are you like, I'm down for the challenge?
Well, like, to be honest with you, no, I didn't think I was ready at all, but I'll do it. Like, I don't care. And at this point, like, I was training in the gym by myself. I'd never even trained with like a training partner. I never trained out with a buddy. So it's just like me alone in the gym at 5 a.m. And now I'm going to go to like the place that I think is the best in the world. So we loaded the car. We drive down to Columbus. It's like 8 hours. We get there. We eat breakfast. We drive to Westside. And like 20 minutes later, I'm under a barbell. And it's like, dude,
I can't even imagine, bro.
Dude, it's insane.
I can't even imagine.
It's like everyone's screaming. There's fucking whatever Metallica's playing. I have a bar on my back. I'm doing like 12 sets of 2 at some amount of weight with bands and kettlebells hanging off of it.
Yeah.
And it's like, Louie's there. No one's talking to Louie. He's sitting in the corner, just staring with his arms crossed. So like they give me a training partner. I train with this guy. And then every so often the guy would walk over to Louie and he'd come back and he's like, we're doing this next. And I would do something else. And then like he'd back, he's like, all right, you're going to do that now. And at the end, like I was laying on a massage table with ankle weights strapped to my legs. And the guy was like, do 200 hamstring curls. And he's like, and don't get up until you do it.
What?
Yeah, so I'm just like hanging off this FST table with ankle weights on, like swinging my legs after like 2.5 hours.
So they just put you through a fucking wall. They threw you right under the bus.
Yeah, and I was like, well, this was awful. So they were like, all right, come back tomorrow at 8 a.m. We'll do it again. And it was like upper body day. And then it was like, all right, come back tomorrow at 8 a.m. And it's like repetition bodybuilding day. It was just 3 days.
Yeah. Okay, so this is pretty early in your like lifting journey, if you want to call it, right? So in your opinion as a professional now, like, do you think that was best for you? Do you think that like, is that something that you would advise for somebody to like go that intense that early? Do you think you're ready for it?
I think it has a lot to do with personality, but I think the biggest thing with what I see now in the fitness world is because the barrier for entry is so low. Mm-hmm. Instagram exists and fitness happens in 60 seconds. I would definitely recommend it. Like whatever your discipline is, regardless of if Westside is the best place for powerlifting, which I don't even think it is. Okay. But it's like, you know what? Like Gold's Gym probably isn't the best for bodybuilding, honestly, either.
Right. But it's got the hype though.
It's got the hype. And it's like, go where people like live and breathe it and realize it takes hard work. Like we all operate in this 60-second interval of what we're allowed to post on the internet, and you can quit at any time. But going to the Westside so early, I realized like working out sucks and it's okay. Like it's gonna suck and no one likes you. You're not strong and you're not big. And it was like, that was the greatest lesson I ever had, because to this day, I realize like I am not strong and I am not big.
Well, I've seen you squat. I wouldn't say you're not strong. Yeah. You know you're strong. You can't lie about that, man. Like we can see your Instagram, bro.
Yeah, strong, but it's a good. I think it's a good lesson, especially in fitness, to have, is that like there's no ceiling to this.
Right.
It's like, don't get ahead of yourself, right? Like how many people just post the good parts of things? It's like, man, the best parts of, I think, like for me, strength, and I would assume even for bodybuilding, it's like the best part is not even 1% of the entire journey itself.
Yeah. I know. I totally agree. So I just did another podcast with my previous prep coach, or current prep coach, Ronaldo, and we talked just about a lot of that, like people coming into the sport and wanting to be a pro right away, but you kind of, I know it's cliche to say fall in love with that process, but that's the difference of what makes the pros and the not pros, right? Is the person that becomes obsessed with every workout and making that workout the best workout, right? And being around jump in, but be around it and enjoy that process, because it's like you said, it's just 1%, right?
Yeah. And for me, like competing at powerlifting, it's like the least exciting part of the whole thing.
Right.
Stressful, it sucks.
Yeah.
It goes your way. There's a million people. You're in I'm in a hotel lobby. Like, who gives a shit?
100%.
I'm at
100%.
Holiday Inn in Brantford. Like, this isn't exciting.
Yeah.
Training is exciting. Like, hitting set in a workout and it not being as hard as you thought it was going to be. Like, I get fired up off that.
Yeah, exactly. And say again, and this is why it's so funny, because I know, like, you know, crossfitters and powerlifters and bodybuilders and strongman, we kind of like take jabs at each other, but we're in the same. It's all the same shit, right? Like, it's a love-hate relationship. We love each other, but it's whatever, right? And I kind of feel like the same thing. Like, you know, stepping on stage, you're on there for like 2 minutes. You prepped for like 6 months, 4 months. You got up and did hours of cardio. You ate countless amounts of white fish and greens. Like, for 2 minutes, like, tops for that day, you might be on stage for 10, 15 minutes. That's it. Yeah. Absolute most, right? And, like, again, if you don't enjoy that process, then really it's all for 15 minutes. You know what I mean? You gotta enjoy, like, oh shit, like, I was able to lift this weight today, or I was able to get lower on my squat, or I grew my arms like a half an inch, right? Yeah. So I totally get that. So you're into powerlifting. You Olympic lift too, though.
Yeah, so I started doing like more Olympic lifting variations 2-3 years ago now. Okay. I met this girl, this friend of mine, Bex, and she's on the Team Canada bobsleigh team. Okay. So, like, as a kid, bobsleigh was my favorite Olympic sport. I watched this shit all the time. Watched Cool Runnings. Thought it was gangster. So I meet this girl, Bex, and she tells me she does bobsleigh. And I'm like, man, I want to do that. So she asked me if I'm fast. And I'm like, yeah, I'm fast. She's like, no, like, you have to be really fast. It's an Olympic. I'm like, yeah, I'm really fast. Like, I want to do it. How do I do it? So she sends me this thing. I sign up for this tryout. I show up in Vans. And, like, dude, some guy rolls up. He's got spikes on.
Oh, yeah. He's ready to go.
It's like a track and field athlete. I'm like, this? And they're like, oh, like, he just didn't make it to the Summer Olympics. So he's going to do this. I'm like, yo, I'm wearing, like, these red Vans. Like, what am I doing?
Like, I'm going for the casual sprint, not the sprint.
Yeah, exactly. So, basically, like, I lace him up. I run this 40. I do this broad jump. And, like, whatever, this guy comes over to me. He's a track and field coach. His sons went to the London Olympics for 4x100 relay. And he's like, listen, man. He's like, you have the worst sprinting technique I've ever seen. And I was like, great, thank you. And he's like, but somehow you just get faster. And he's like, I don't know how you do it. So I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And he's like, yeah. He's like, awful. It's the ugliest running I've ever seen, but you're fast. So me and him have a meeting. I took a bunch of, like, sprint coaching from him, and I ended up getting this email to go to Calgary to do bobsleigh. So yeah, man, I quit I quit my job. I, like, sell a bunch of stuff I have to get some money. I fly out there. I'm, like, living in a hotel. I end up living in a sleeping bag. I end up living in a bathtub. I'm, like, trying to do bobsleigh. Everybody's 220 pounds. I'm 180 pounds at this point. Yeah. I'm drinking, like, milk and eating chili every day.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then I started doing weightlifting just to get, like, more explosive and more powerful for sports or for bobsleigh, and that's kind of how I got into it. Then I ended up hurting my hip this year and hurting my knee, and then the only thing I was able to do was bodybuilding style workouts and weightlifting. I couldn't do, like, really heavy squatting or really heavy deadlifting anymore, so I started to transition to weightlifting before Corona happened.
Okay. So that's more recent then, that you just started kind of more Olympic lifting more recent.
Yeah, man, like a month before, like, right when you and I met at that hypertrophy course, like, I was just screwing around and I was, like, decently okay at it. So I was like, maybe I could make a run at this. Like, maybe I could do this lifting thing. Yeah.
So I've tried it, and I don't know how you just pick it up. Like, that's, I don't know, man. It's either something you got or you don't got, or you got it. It's going to take you a really long time to, like, develop that skill.
Yeah,
there's no middle ground, I think, for, like, Olympic lifting. I struggle with it, like, the timing, like, my coordination, like, after becoming a bodybuilder, like, my coordination is, like, non-existent anymore. I could probably shoot a basketball and throw a football, but, like, the fancy shit I used to do before it's not happening anymore, right? So that it just kind of just kind of came natural for you, kind of thing?
Yeah, I think honestly, like ignorance was bliss when it came to learning weightlifting. Because like I don't know how to do weightlifting, so I just kind of like with Snatch, I just started snatching from like the high hang, which is like putting the bar in your hip, and like I just thought like all I have to do is jump. So that's pretty much what I do. And like I have a decent vertical, so I was like, okay, I just pick this weight up and I'm decently strong. I stick it in my hip and I just jump and throw it over my head.
Yeah.
Like that's how I learned how to do weightlifting.
Simple. Yeah, it sounds simple.
Yeah, so I just started jumping, and I think because I put so much less thought into like how it works and just more thought into like, okay, it eventually gets up there. Yeah. Like some level of coordination I still have and like athletic experience, I was able to kind of put things together. Now to like the unskilled eye of me or you, it's like, man, this guy can do weightlifting. To a weightlifter, it's like the ugliest thing they've ever seen.
Yeah, he's like, oh, this guy needs some work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're so technical, right? So you mentioned actually, let's talk about that, because you mentioned earlier, you know, you didn't know how to train as a bodybuilder. It's funny though, because like powerlifting is often an Olympic lifting, like Olympic lift in terms of technique is like way up there, right? And then people would argue, okay, then powerlifting is like the next notch down, and then bodybuilding is kind of like hovers below both of those, right? It's funny because I kind of think like, you know, there's technique involved in all of them, at all levels, in all different mediums of whatever kind of fitness journey you're on or whatever. So I say that to say this. I know recently on your blog you talked about skill acquisition, right? And learning the skill to make you proficient at the next thing, right? Getting better at the skill to make you a better bodybuilder, getting better at the skill to make your squat heavier or whatever. Can you talk a little bit about that with me and share that with me? What are the phases? How does it work? And kind of put it in your own words on what skill acquisition in weightlifting means to you.
Yeah, for sure. So I got into this idea of skill acquisition mainly because I was trying to teach. When you're a trainer just like me, you try and teach so many different people the same thing, and you realize like people learn at different speeds. So what I thought was like, when I was younger, I played a lot of music. Like I played drums, I played piano, I played guitar. So I remember learning those things, and I was like, man, how did I learn how to play these complex things? And I was like, oh, it was in stages, and I kind of write about it on my blog, like learning what the notes are on paper, learning where they're located on the instrument, and then putting them together in a song. So I started thinking, when we look at weightlifting, regardless of discipline, bodybuilding, powerlifting, weightlifting, we disregard this idea that, like you said, there's skill involved in every discipline. So when I started coaching people, I started realizing for people to even like enter into this sport or this discipline that we have, you have to create the safest possible environment for them to understand how to utilize their body. So when I think of it in powerlifting, I think of, you know, for someone to really understand in the squat how to utilize like their quads, their hips, their glutes, getting underneath a barbell is such a huge physiological stressor for most people. It's not the safest possible environment to even learn that movement pattern. Like, when do my hips break? When do my knees break? How do I abduct at the glute?
Yeah, 100%.
Same thing goes for bodybuilding, right? Like, you walk into any gym and you see a guy doing a lateral raise and he's just like swinging the shit out of these dumbbells. Like, this guy's never hitting his delt, right?
No.
So it's that same idea. So when you look at skill acquisition, there's 3 tiers to it. The first tier is cognitive skill acquisition. Cognitive skill acquisition is like adapting basically a movement pattern. In order to adapt a movement pattern, it's a neurological pattern you're adapting. Your brain is understanding, what do I need to think about? What do I need to cue in order for my arm to move the way it moves? If I want to adapt a neurological pattern, I have to introduce 0 physiological stress. So the load can't be heavy. It can't require a huge amount of coordination. So when you think about this in movement, if I want someone to understand how their quads and their hips work, before they ever squat, they're going to lunge. Because it's one leg at a time. The greatest load most people are going to use in a lunge at first is their own body weight. We can externally support them. They can hold on to something.
Right.
And safely, physiologically safe, which lowers that stress they have, that allostatic load, they're allowed to understand, like, what does my foot feel like on the ground? Like, how do I create a stable base in my foot? How do I drive into my knee? As my knee is flexed, as my knee is going through flexion, how does my hip accommodate through flexion? What does my other leg do? So that's cognitive. So when we think of cognitive skill acquisition, we think of removing all physical stress to the person and all you're doing is stressing their brain. That's all you're asking for.
Right.
The second stage to skill acquisition is actually adapting or associating whatever you taught them first with a movement itself. So if we take, go ahead.
So I was gonna say, so how do you know, so you're moving them from phase to phase, right? At what point do you say, okay, like they've gotten this, like they're cognitive, they've met that prerequisite to move into the next phase? Is it just kind of, is there a measure, is there like a litmus test for that?
So what I would do is, if you're associating that cognitive ability, that pattern to a set sport or skill, I would just associate it with.
I think you're freezing here. Okay, we're good. We're good to go.
So if you're going to associate it with a skill, you want to make sure that they can do that safe cognitive pattern for at least an equal amount of repetitions or time, or almost like 1.5 times the amount of whatever you want them to do. So if I want someone to barbell squat 5 reps really heavy, they better be able to lunge on each leg at least 10 reps. It's kind of like when I run the 100-meter, I don't train 100 meters, I train 200 meters. So right. I'm overrunning at the end. So that's what I look at cognitive, that someone's technique doesn't break down for at least 100% or 150% of the time or rep range that they want to do. And I would still train cognitively in the same session. Like before they squat, we're gonna lunge, because we want to be able to really assess where that person is stress-wise, right? Like you're gonna have clients come in, or even yourself, you're gonna go in one day and you go to do a lunge and it's all like you even said, like coordination's not there. You're gassed that day. Yeah. You're thinking about 1,000 things, right? Like people are going to come out of quarantine, go to the gym, and a body weight lunge is going to look like a 1 rep max. They're just.
I promise you that will be me. I promise you I will be that guy.
So it's like before I get under a barbell with 500 pounds, I'd much rather test where I'm at skill wise with my own body weight, where there's no physiological stress to adapt to. So basically looking at 100% to 150% of the time or reps that person's going to do, they can execute a sound skill. Then you start associating it. So then you're going to get under whatever modality or tool that person uses. For bodybuilder, weightlifter, powerlifter, it's most likely going to be a barbell first and at a basic level to some degree. So they get under the barbell. For associative skill, I'm trying to adapt a skill. So I'm only going to work to a repetition in which technical ability starts to drop off.
Fail. Right. So do you, that's what I was going to ask you. You stop before failure.
Before failure.
Yeah. You want to train a good pattern, right? And you don't want your brain to associate with poor form.
Correct. Right? Yeah. Cause like, if we think of it, like basketball is a good example. Like if you ever like listen to really good basketball players talk about practicing or like talk about how they got good at any set skill, they never practiced something poorly. Like no one ever took 1,000 bad shots.
Right.
Listen, like Kyle Lowry starts missing buckets. You know what they do? They don't give him the ball anymore. He goes and adopts a new skill, right? Like He goes from shooting the ball to passing the ball.
Right. So practice doesn't make perfect. It makes permanent, right?
Correct. So if I do a set of 10 and 3 reps are terrible. If I do 3 sets, I did 9 terrible reps. I essentially did 1 bad set.
Right.
Like you wouldn't do 1 totally shit set, right? You wouldn't do 100% reps. So don't exponentially, if you practice bad reps, you will just become a bad lifter. So stop when technique is at its best or when technique starts to drop off. Stop associating that movement pattern with a very high level skill activity. High skill activities usually involve coordination. So barbell movements, or if you think of like an athlete, some type of drill, right? Like a basketball player. Right. Stop shooting threes when you start having shit form.
Absolutely.
Go hit layups, right? Or go just. So that's when, if we looked at this in a workout, if the first movement cognitively was body weight lunge, the second movement would be like a barbell squat. When technique breaks down in barbell squat, the next movement would be a hack squat. A hack squat involves the same physiological adaptation, but now far less skill. I don't have to organize my core. My breathing economy isn't as necessary as it is in the squat. I'm allowed to utilize that external support of the machine to cue a lot of things. I can sit back into the machine. I can really emphasize that knee flexion. So I'm allowed to spend 2 to 3 times more time adopting a lot of the same patterns, but now I don't have that higher level skill requirement. So it's less stressful on the body.
Right. Right. Okay, so we move to the next. After we move into the next phase, um, and then what happens there, and what happens after that? Like,
Yeah, so associative skill ends when technique breaks down. Move to autonomous skill, so a lower skilled exercise with the same like physiological adaptation, so using the same musculature, and just train that to absolute failure.
okay.
Like,
So when we get to that last phase, we're just kind of always upping the ante at that point, right? We're not starting over so let's say we want to teach another, another big lift or whatever. Are we starting over? So for example, let's say we're doing a deadlift, right? A conventional deadlift. We go through our phases, and now we want to do sumo deadlift, right? Now sumo deadlift is just a variation from another deadlift, right? So we're not starting all over again, right? Because we've already acquired that the cognitive phase and whatnot, right? We've already gone through all of that.
yeah,
Okay.
so
Is
yeah.
that what you say? That's kind of a big downfall that you're seeing with a lot of your clients and yourself even?
I would say I saw it early on for myself. Like I was combining a lot of higher skilled exercises in the same workout. Like I would do conventional deadlift, and then I would do like block pull, or I would do like front squat, and I would do deadlift in the same workout. It's like, man, like my technique broke down on squat. Like what people forget about, it's like if your technique breaks down when you're squatting and you go to deadlift, dog, it's the same brain. Like your technique broke down because your brain broke down. It didn't break down because my legs and arms broke down. I wasn't physically tired. I just could no longer cue or create that intrinsic ability to complete the lift. So switching from squat to deadlift doesn't change anything. So it's like for most athletes, choose one skilled movement a day. When that breaks down, go to something that's lower skilled or externally supported and physically fatigue yourself. Like I can still get strong doing leg press.
Right.
Still adapting to load. It's not going to be a lesser strength exercise if trained appropriately.
So here's a question for you. I know, and this has happened with me even, where it's not necessarily my skill broke down, and I'm gonna be very honest. I think my brain broke down. Like you said, it's not that I couldn't. How should I word it? It's I just didn't want to lift that weight anymore. I was punking out of a workout, right? So in that case where it's just like motivation, right? It's still, would you say that that's still a means for you to go to call it quits with that particular movement, move on to something else?
100%. Right? Like shut it down, move and then for a lot of people it's like shut it down and do something you like, man. Like everybody has that one upper body or one lower body exercise that they like, and if your brain's not in it for the day, it's like go do something you enjoy. Like sometimes for me, even like I'll be doing a lower body workout and I don't like it at all, and I don't want to squat anymore, and then I'll go do like lying leg curl, which I love. I crush the lying leg curl, and all of a sudden I have a second wind. I like want to smash it.
Amped up, yeah, for sure.
And it's like I'm not going to go back to barbell squat, but like I'll do a goblet squat or I'll do a leg press, and it's like now I'm fired up because I enjoyed this, and like I started feeling that mind muscle connection. So for a lot of clients, like the way I program is I don't program rep ranges, I program set ranges. So I choose the amount of reps I want them to complete, but I'll give them a range like 5 to 7 sets or 3 to 5 sets. And it's like that gives them that ability to be like, hey, I got 3 sets in. It wasn't for me today. Okay, shut it down. So like I'll have a client back squat for 5 to 7 sets. On a day, they only get 5 sets. Then they go to leg press and they do 5 sets on leg press. So they'll get the equivalent lower body volume, but they get it at least in the best quality possible.
I understand. I got you. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So when you're doing your program too, then do you also, you mentioned like going to an exercise that you like enjoy to kind of rejuvenate yourself, I guess you'd call it, right? So do you program that for people? Do you kind of know your client and you'll say, okay, I know they really like to do bicep curls, so I know they hate doing this, let me throw in something that they like? Or are you kind of more like, this is what they got to train, this is the skill that they need to get where they want to go, so this is what they're going to get?
On the intake form that I send all my clients, the first question is, what do you love to train? That's the first one, even before their goals. It's like, what do you love to train? Because sometimes what people love to train has nothing to do with their goal.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like they just
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Like, dude, I love training lat pull down more than anything else. Like that's my favorite machine. And like not the Jordan Shallow good lat pull down.
Yeah.
Just with the stack do lat pull down. I love that shit. So like every day I train, I do lat pull down because I get hype off of it. So,
every day, huh?
Yeah, every training session, some variation of lat pull down goes down. And I'm still am not wide at all. But no, the first question I ask everybody is like, what do you love to train? And the second question is, what do you hate to train? The third question is, what are your goals? And whatever they love to train, like that shows up in some way, shape, or form every day.
Yeah.
Even if it's the last exercise, when I know it's not going to affect anything.
It's something for them to look forward to, that they know it's going to come at some point. Yeah. Are most of your clients kind of more power lifter? Are they more kind of, do you have like a mix? Is it more lifestyle people or?
You know what? It's like very, very low on, I'm very low on lifestyle clients. I have these two distinct audiences. There's a big powerlifting audience. I train a couple like bodybuilding clients, more hypertrophy clients. So it's a big split. I would say it's like 50% strength athlete, and then 50% people who are really broken. Like, I don't know how it happened, but everybody I train in person, all my in-person clientele are all people with like catastrophic injury, man. Like torn ACL, car accident, hit by a car, has MS.
Holy crap.
Stroke. Like I train the wildest people, double knee replacement. So it's like, man, in person, I never get like the cool lifestyle client that you can just push. It's like wrapped in bubble wrap and like trying to save them.
It's amazing when you get them though, huh?
Oh, dude, it's my favorite thing. And I think I just kept getting them because I kept getting them.
Right.
And, like I have broken people that recommend more broken people to me.
100%. I'm the same way.
Sending them in. I'm like, oh, great.
I'm the same way. The thing is though, it's really, it's you definitely get something from somebody that has never been able to like get up from like a kneeling position. You're like, look, like you can kneel now with weight, you can lunge, you can do like a lateral lunge or whatever, right? Like definitely I get something out of that. But at times it gets boring. Right? And the trick is, I think as a good coach and as a good trainer is making the exercises and making it fun. Like, yeah, it's going to hurt. It's going to be shitty at times. So that's how I generally try to train my clients. Did you learn this? So did you learn this from like Good Life? Is that kind of where this started? Did you start at Good Life?
Yeah, I did. Like I started at Good Life in 2011.
Okay.
Way back in the day, man. But I remember, like I got hired during like one of the launch months where they have like the whole region goes to like the movie theater or whatever. I think it was a hotel conference room at the time. There's 10 trainers. And they had John Berardi from Precision Nutrition.
Okay.
It was sick, dude. Like I didn't know who this guy was, but he showed up and he's like 5'4", huge head. And he was just like yelling all this motivational shit. And like, I didn't buy into any of it.
No.
He told me that he trained super rich people in Miami. And I was like, well, I'd like to do that. That sounds good.
So he got your attention.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay, super rich people in Miami. Got it. And he's like, yeah, I read these 2 books. So one of the books he read was it's Influence by, I think it's Mark Cialdini. And then another book is Switch by these guys, Chip and Dale Heath. And they were really, really good. And like, that's where I would say 90% of the stuff I learned came from these 2 books. And there's another book I read called Crucial Accountability and Crucial Conversations. And like, I don't invent anything. I just read scripts out of this book all the time. Yeah. So I remember in Influence, there's this idea that everyone plays audio tapes. So like when I say something, your brain, without you thinking, just like basically it's like a tape recorder and it just plays a response back. Right. Like when you're like, hey man, how are you? And the guy's like, good, you? It's like, he didn't think. His brain and yelled good.
It just happened, yeah. Automated.
Yeah, so I realized that early on. It's like there's things you can say to people that just elicit a good response. And the other thing I realized was like, you have to let people take the reins. Like, no, if there's a rider and an elephant, no one wants to be the elephant, right? Everybody wants to be the rider. But the thing the rider doesn't get is at any time that elephant goes where he wants. He's a huge animal.
Right.
the elephant doesn't realize is he can go wherever he wants because he's a huge animal. So I realized you just got to make people think they're the one who's in control. So when you ask somebody what they like about training and they tell you, it's like, yeah, just give them that. And they're like, oh, I have so much input on this program. It's like,
Right.
yeah, regardless of how much that really does for them. And then the other thing is I realized early on, giving people a range of sets to do, people are always going to want to do all the sets. Everyone wants to appease the person that's in charge, right?
100%, yeah.
Do 5 to 7 sets. You're going to do 7 sets.
Right.
You're not going to do 5.
No, because then you're punking out.
Yeah.
So all the time, my clients do that all the time. As a head coach with as a head coach's prescript, I know Jordan is really big on that, like hiding the vegetables, right? Giving a lot of stability and core training with like exercises you have no idea. You're not thinking at all. You're training your core. I know we did like the hamstring curl machine, like the the laying hamstring curl machine. And when you came to Good Life, like people were struggling doing this, and it was just like, this is something that you see everybody on that machine, but now challenge their stability on a machine, and they're like, holy crap, like what is going on? Their mind is blown, right?
And it's like, man, me and Shallow went to Pure Muscle, which is like the mecca of the north, right? It's the bodybuilding gym. So me and Shallow rolled up there right after that Whippy course. It was like the day after.
Yeah, let's come with you guys.
Yeah, definitely. When it opens back up, we'll roll through, man. So we roll up and like we're gonna train legs. Dorian Hamilton's there. Cody's there. Manages the place. Wicked dude. So we're gonna train legs with them. And like Shallow's a big dude. He can hold his own. But then there's me. I'm like 175 pounds. Yeah. Like I get on this hamstring curl. I'm just murdering everybody on this thing. Because like I do it all the time and I do it the right way. So we throw Cody on there and he has like maybe 25 pounds. He's gassed. Like this guy can't hold his hips anywhere. And I don't do bodybuilding, but I get it. And I'm a fan of it. And I was like, listen, man, like you're going to get on stage. You're going to sit around with waist trainers and belts on and think it's going to give you a small waist. You can't hold like a vacuum on the lying hamstring curl.
Yeah.
This is the lowest hanging fruit for you to hit like a vacuum. Classic physique, man. Get on the damn machine. So for sure. I just remember like rolling up to Pure Muscle and like doing these exercises and having that stability that you gain from just having a little more critical thinking. And it's like I wipe the floor with half the bodybuilders there. When it's education over effort, like sometimes education wins. Sometimes.
Absolutely. No, I agree. That's what we were talking about earlier. Like that's a bottleneck, right? Is this you can get strong to a certain point and then everything else is just not, you're not developing everything else. So there's gonna be a limit on where you can go. I remember my first time training with Jordan and Ben Pekulski actually.
Thanks.
So I'm keeping up with these guys and Robin Schran. So I'm keeping up with these guys, and at the end, like they throw me on same machine, laying leg curl, right? Lying leg curl. And I swear to God, I shit you not, bro. I shit you not. At the end, I'm like, I'm going to go to the bathroom because I need to puke and I can't let them see it or else I'm not going to be able to train with them again. So I'm going to just go to the bathroom. I hung out in the bathroom. I didn't throw up, but I was like, I'm going to throw up. So I come back out and I just sit there and I'm like, I'm dizzy. I'm just like, I'm going through some shit right now, right? And there was like no weight on it, man, but just doing it properly, bracing and engaging my core, pulling my pelvis down to the pad, like just made the world of difference, I think that in bodybuilding, for sure, there's a huge opportunity for guys like yourself to, help people out, for sure. Like, so you do train people now. It's what, K2 training?
Yeah, K2 training or like K squared, K2 coaching or K squared.
Okay. What's that? Where'd the K2 come from?
You know what? It's kind of an interesting thing. Kind of came from the idea that I wanted it to be like well-rounded, like that idea of skill acquisition, right? Like,
okay.
Coaching always comes from this idea of it's just a spreadsheet, and it's like this philosophy of like sets and reps and intensity, and that's all you need to follow. But it's not, right? There's there's that, like,
there's a bit of an art form to it.
there is an art, right? And like, I think bodybuilders, the thing I loved about bodybuilding, and I still do, is this idea that they have this respect for this art versus habitude, or like this art versus just mechanical movement, and like this occult idea that there's something else to it, right? And that's really what I take to training. Like, the first article I wrote was almost saying, like, when it comes to training, don't have a philosophy, because philosophies so quickly become like dogmas and doctrine, and it's like a religion, right? Like,
For
people,
sure, you live and die by it.
and this training, it's like, nah, man, like, do any training, but your philosophy should just be to have an intention. Like, there should be this like ghost in the machine, right? Like, there's a difference between when I do a bicep curl and when you do a bicep curl. And it's not because your bicep has a brain and it understands how to contract better than my bicep, but you have this intrinsic like ghost in the machine. When you do a bicep, like, you just get it. Like, your arm does this, and it's like, you get a bicep pump. Because I'm just taking my hand and just moving it closer to my head.
Right.
And you can like visualize and see and feel like those muscle fibers coming together. And like, it would be the same for me, like squatting. It's like, man, when I brace in a squat, I feel different than 90% of people. Like, I can like take a deep breath in. Like, I can literally feel like my belly button getting closer to my spine. Like, I feel my ribs and my scapula move. Like, I can feel the palm of my hand on my bar. Like, when I squat, like, I literally think of like, what does my hand feel like? Where's my elbow? Like, what do my ribs feel like? What do my hips feel like? So that's, it's like, crazy, man. That's that intention that comes from art versus habitude, right? Like, I described it once, whether it was taken well or not. It's the idea of like Stevie Wonder or Ray Charles playing the piano. And like, Stevie Wonder could roll up to 10 pianos and he could describe every one to you, and he can't see. Right. I'm going to sit down on a piano and play big. They all feel the same. Like, I don't know, Plastic Keys, Toys R Us, whatever, grand piano. It's all the same shit to me. It's just a piano. But like, Stevie Wonder gets it. Like, he gets the feel and the weight of each key, the space between them, ivory and ebony, plastic versus real. You know what I mean? Like, he can feel the difference. That's art versus habitude.
It's funny that you say that, because it's what's amazing is that you know that other people don't feel that. Yeah. Right? Because when you started training, is that's probably something that you've always felt. When you squatted, you're like, I feel this. This is me. Right? And you would think, okay, I'm going to train this person, or I'm training with this person. Okay, they're going to feel those same things, right? But they just don't. And some, it's not that their technique is bad. It's not that they're not cute or they're not training. It's just that they can't do it the same. Yeah. You know, it's crazy that you can make that connection, because it's taken me a long time to understand that with my training and training people, that, okay, you know, I'll coach them. I'll say, okay, do this. And sometimes they're doing exactly what you're telling them to do, but it's just not the same.
And you can tell, like, you can look
100%.
And like, regardless of how good it looks, like, you know, right? There's that weird feeling where you're like, it's not.
Yeah, you're not connecting it. You know, sometimes you prod around, you're like, oh yeah, like this muscle's not even like fired up right now. It's kind of like loose. It's just there's something else doing the work. The technique is there, but the muscle that I'm asking you to use, or that I'm trying to impose the demand on, is just not taking that load.
Yeah. Right? And it's like, you see people, even like, one of the big things I do with people when they start is like, I'll have someone like hold on to the squat rack, and like, they just go into like hip flexion, knee flexion. Like, I just get them to pick their leg up. And like, I do a lot of consultations on the internet now, and I'll have people do like a lunge with a sprinter's pose or a single leg deadlift. And this is my biggest pet peeve. And like, I rant all the time. Like, I rant to my girlfriend now about it. I'm like, look at this. This person never dorsiflexes their foot. And it's like, who gives a shit? And I even asked the guy, I was like, hey man, when you do sprinter pose, you have like this limp dick foot. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's just dangling there.
And he's like, well, I don't think it matters. Like, what does it matter? Like, bro, dude, Usain Bolt
is everything.
Yeah, like, when Usain Bolt's foot comes off the ground, like, that toe's in the air. Like, he's ready to absorb the ground, like, absorb ground force. But that's intent. Like, when I lift my leg, I'm ready to smash the floor with my foot. Like, my intention is to drive force into the ground. But that's like you and I say, it's like, someone can look like they're doing something, but they don't have that intrinsic idea of like, what does my ankle do? What does my big toe do? Like, what does my knee do in space? And like before I squat, even to this day, like I'll do like walking lunge with sprinter pose, or even in my basement, man, like I just do sprinter pose. Like I just stand there and lift my knee to my chest, and like I like organize my foot and my ankle, like what position does my foot have to be in? And I record it like every day before I train. I record 20 minutes of me lifting my leg in the air. And like I'll stand there straight up like this. And I'm like, okay, like how do I organize my knee? Like where does my knee go? Where does my foot go? And I'll just videotape it. And I don't start squatting until my foot and my knee and my hip and my glute are in the right place.
Right. I'm the same way. I used to, as a bodybuilder too, just like I used to just, I think it's everybody. Like when you start, you just jump under a bar.
Yeah.
You don't stretch, like you don't do shit, right? And then as you start to learn more and everything, if you're that person that wants to progress, you're like, oh shit, like this is hurting, or this doesn't feel right, or how come I can't do it this way, right? I know for me, like since we mentioned the squat, my toes, I just can't seem to grab properly with them, and it makes a huge difference when I start lowering my body. What happens with my feet, what happens with my knee, like it all starts with the feedback from the ground, right? So I totally get it, man. And it's just like you said, like we said, like there's not a lot of people that just get that, but then there's the people that just do. And it's like I said, it's awesome that you can just identify that and be like, okay, you know what? Like people don't get this. They look like it, but they don't get it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the people that I coach now, like more than anything, like that's the coaching. People are like, you want me to send you a video of my squat? I'm like, I really don't care, man. Like just send me a video of your walking lunge. Like I don't even need the squat. Just send me the walking lunge. I'll know exactly how the squat looks from that.
Yeah.
It's like, nah, I'm not really interested in that. And it's like half the notes in the coaching I send people, it's just intention. Like next time, man, like put the intention into your traps, or it's like, think about this, like grab the bar like this with your hand, or it's like move your shoulder like this. And I think there's so much more we can give people in terms of the small things than even the big things. Because it's like everyone can go out there and hit the gas, man. Like people go to the gym because they want to hit the gas.
Absolutely, yeah.
There's few who want to stand in the mirror and like, organize their feet. It's a small population of people. For
sure. Okay, so tell the people a little bit about like, what's up next for you? Are you competing anytime soon? Let's talk about let them know where they can sign up for your training and whatnot.
Yeah, man. So once the quarantine is over, I'm going to sign up for whatever the first powerlifting meet is that shows up on the calendar. So I might CDF Nationals. A bunch of my friends are doing that. That's going to be in Mississauga. So I'll be doing that in the fall. As well as I'll be doing a weightlifting meet before the end of the year as well. Once again, once this quarantine's over, I'll do the first one that shows up on the calendar. What else is out there for me?
Well, we got to get training in before that.
Yeah, we do. We have to get training before that. I'll have to eat a few meals before I show up with you and get out ahead.
I'll eat a few meals.
Yeah. Way, dude. But yeah, so I'm gonna, and then everything else for me right now, I'm teaching free script twice a week online, as well as K2coaching.ca is kind of the hub for all of the writing that I do, kind of training philosophy programming wise, as well as I do Zoom consultations with a ton of people right now, and any online coaching or programming through there. So it's been pretty cool. Like I'm doing a lot of consultations. Like the majority of my business right now is these 1 hour Zoom calls. I've been doing calls with like people in the MLB, people in the NCAA.
That's awesome, man.
American University. So a lot of my consultations right now are towards trainers or coaches like myself and yourself. A lot on training philosophy and just talking through ideas and getting different viewpoints. And then I'm doing a ton of coaching right now, even though people are in quarantine. It's like, because we're quarantined, it's the best time to train cognitive skill, right? It's a place to develop new patterns and gain more stability. And
I've been raving about that for sure.
Stand in the mirror and stare at my feet, so.
Absolutely. What about, so do you offer one-on-one coaching as well, or?
Yeah. All the programming through the website is completely one-on-one. I send people like spreadsheets and notes weekly, go on bi-weekly phone calls as well via all my clients, and I provide them back.
Awesome.
I train people in Sydney, Australia, man. Like I have 7 different calendar clocks on my phone right now. So
Jeez.
pretty crazy.
Man is putting in the work.
You have to, man.
For sure. Well, it was friggin' awesome, finally getting to have this conversation. We'll definitely have to do another one when all of this is over and kind of figure out where you are and what's going on with your meets. I know you just explained, but maybe we can give an update on like what you're doing and how you're training to prepare for those. That would be cool to hear from you. Was there anything else that you want to
No, I don't think so, man. I think anybody who listened to this who's interested in acquiring skill, you know, it's not my idea, and I don't think anybody has an individual idea anymore. I think it just comes down to, like we said, art versus habitude. And I think the thing we neglect is the amount of time you and I have probably spent. Like, how many hours and minutes have you spent doing bicep curls and like doing chest flies? How many hours have I spent doing walking lunges? And I think sometimes we forget about that 10 years in, like the amount of time it took us. So people just need to, you know, be patient with it. And like you said, respect the process. Like when you're doing a bicep curl, be 100% concentrated on every single rep. And like what we said, what does it feel like? What do my fingers feel like? What are my wrists doing? What are my shoulders doing? And I think if people focus on that quality, they'll just get so much further.
All right, my man. Okay, so thank you for joining me. And like I said, we'll catch up again.
Yeah, man.
All right, dude. Take care.
Yeah, see you, dude.